Welcome to Looking at Legal Stuff. Today we have a TPO hearing with a woman who wants a protective order against a man that she says has been harassing her with hundreds of phone calls a day after she left her phone number with the employees of Subway store after she made a complaint about her order. She tracked down some middle-aged man who lives in a different state through his phone records, but no matter how many times both the man and the judge try to tell her that the phone records can be spoofed, she doesn't want to hear it and remains laser focused on this confused and annoyed man. Let's watch.
Talia Woods, Brandon Williams. Ms. Woods, if you'd activate your video there. Ms. Woods, there we go. Thank you. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, I have your audio. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
And if you both raise your right hands for me, please.
Yes.
Swear that testimony in this case to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
And Mr. Williams? Is that a yes, Mr. Williams?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, yeah, we have to record everybody's responses, so I need out loud responses. Thank you. Ms. Woods, you indicated you went to Subway to get a sandwich and there was an issue, and ultimately that Mr. Williams got upset with, I'm not sure what, his belief that you mistreated staff or something, and then called you, you said 100 times?
Yeah, so I have been receiving multiple harassing phone calls, and it started since November the 21st after I left that sandwich shop. And I believe that they may have given that phone number to like a family member or somebody. So all the numbers that have been calling me, like it was multiple threatening, harassing calls, and I made attempts to block those numbers as well. So when I trace, like look back at the numbers, it all goes back to Brandon Williams, and then it goes back to that same address. And so every day I have to pass this sandwich shop and I don't feel safe. I'm a single woman. I live by myself. And, just passing it every day by my job, I just don't feel safe. I work 5 days a week and I have to drive past that establishment. And I've been receiving a high volume of calls still. So I have screenshots that I presented to show that I have been receiving multiple phone calls from those numbers. Some numbers are from block numbers, but when I pick it up, it's the same voice, and I'm indicating to stop calling me, stop harassing my phone. Each time I find out that it's that voice on the other end, the same voice, same male voice threatening, I make attempts to block the number. And I just want to stop any form of contact. I just don't want any contact made anymore by this person. I don't want to be harassed anymore. And that's why I just wanted to put the legal proceedings in place so that I can feel safe.
All right, so you said you received calls from a variety of numbers, and you said that you did research on those numbers and they all came back to Mr. Williams. Is that?
Yes, they've all came back to that same person, same address. Um, it's all from the same person, yes. And
Okay,
it's
and
just
have you
Mhm.
ever met Mr. Williams?
I have not met this person, but it's just been multiple phone calls from my phone. And when I pick up, it's the same male voice and it's a threat, making threats, just harassing repeatedly, and just calls back to back to back. And then when I traced it, all the numbers come back to this person and to that address.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
And what's the address it comes back to?
Yeah, so it comes back to a Greenwood, Indiana address, and I have it I have it screenshotted too, and I can share that with you as well. Let me find it here.
Okay, well, let me just ask Mr. Williams, are you in Greenwood, Indiana?
Yes, Your Honor, I'm in Greenwood, Indiana.
Okay. All right. Mr. Williams, go ahead.
Okay, well, Your Honor, I don't know if you had an opportunity to look at the evidence that was presented late. And this was because the first time I ever heard of anything about this case or what Ms. Woods is talking about is on the 21st of this month when I was served by the sheriff saying, hey, you've got this, this hearing to go to. If you look at the evidence, I don't know if you have it in front of you. Number one.
No, I don't have anything that you have filed.
Okay, Your Honor. The number that Ms. Woods is talking about that I'm associated with is not registered to me. It is a Verizon jetpack that was disconnected from me in 2023. And I have the evidence here, and you could probably see it once you're we did file a little bit later, so that information is in there, but that jetpack, which basically just gives you internet, it's not a phone. So this is the number that is currently not connected to anything. And this hasn't been used since 2023. So that number is like a spoof number that someone is using in order to make these particular phone calls to Ms. Woods. Secondly, I live in Greenwood, Indiana. I'm not associated with anyone in Washington State. I haven't been to Washington State in over 5 years. I don't know what the Subway location is. I have no connection to anyone at Subway or anything like that. And so for Ms. Woods to claim in her statement that she did her research, I did research on that number as well. And it came back with, it was registered to no one. But I looked up my own phone number, my 360 phone number, and both of my phone numbers that she articulated in the in her statement came up with my name. And so my big question is, if she did the research, I don't know what research she's done, except the fact that maybe she went to see some public records that are like old names connected with phone numbers or old phone numbers. And she just took that number and associated me with it without understanding that it's an old phone number that I'm no longer registered to. And I think that's the leap that right now she's taking in order to unwittingly falsely accuse me of something that I have no idea what's going on about this. So, but some things that I looked at and the evidence from my perspective is when I looked at the statement that Miss Woods was saying that someone threatening called her from Subway, it was an unusual thing to go back into Subway after you felt so threatened that she went back into Subway to take on these people who apparently had said, I'm going to hurt you. And she goes back into Subway to face them. And it seems like there's a connection that I'm not privy to. And I'm being wrapped into it because instead of going through the Subway chain of command, if you were, it's just filing a petition against a phone number instead of doing the due diligence of finding out who's connected to the phone number, or even if that phone number is even active, because currently, Your Honor, it is not.
Okay, so in your testimony, I'm hearing you say you have no idea what this is about and you have not made any calls. You don't know Ms. Woods and you've not made any calls to her at all. Am I accurate? Is that a sworn statement by you?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Woods,
Your
is
Honor,
this a voice you believe you've heard?
Yes. So, Your Honor, I would like to add this, that I filed a police report that same day. And so the police, they did do an investigation into the numbers and they did trace it back to Verizon Wireless. So when they did do the full investigation on that. And so I did also file a complaint with the owner as well. So the threat started after I left the shop. And so I did go and do my due diligence, and I filed a police report, and they did link it back to a Verizon Wireless user. And so when I did call Verizon Wireless, they did confirm that it is an active number from a Brandon Williams. And so they also had all of those numbers that were linked to that particular person that was making the harassing phone calls. And then also, I did look up and do research on Brandon Williams, the numbers and everything, and it also stated that that their address was in Puyallup, Washington, back in 2023. So it wasn't 5 years that they weren't, in Washington. And so where I don't feel safe, I would like to add that I don't feel safe because I'm still receiving those multiple harassing phone calls. And so when I did file a report with the police department, that's where they did trace back that number to that person. I do have the address. It was from Thornhill Lane in Greenwood, Indiana, and that's where all the numbers are coming back to. Um, so I'm still getting these calls. I personally, I don't feel safe. So when I entered into the establishment, the workers, they instructed me to write down my phone number on a piece of paper. And so I wrote down my number and I handed it off to them. And that's when, like, when the sandwich was remade, the employees, they were very disgruntled. They were upset that I came back, and it was something, a really simple fix. And so when I left the establishment, that's when I started receiving the multiple harassing calls. And I did contact the owner. I let her know everything that was going on. I filed a report with her. I went straight up to the corporate level, and she was very much interested in finding out who was behind, these multiple harassing calls. And so when I did do research on this number, it said that their last prior address to Greenwood, Indiana was in Puyallup, Washington in 2023. So I don't know if they have a connection with the people at the subway shop where they can easily come back, or carry out any threats. So the threats definitely started when I got in the car. I answered the phone, and that's when the threats started. And then that's when I did my diligence to contact the owner, and I made a police report that same night in
All right,
response to that. Hmm.
thank you.
Hmm.
Mr. Williams, is that the correct street address?
Thornhill is correct, Your Honor. However, the Puyallup timeline is incorrect. So the 2023, I have been living in Greenwood since 2020. As part of the evidence that was submitted, though late, it shows a deed for a home that we have purchased in Greenwood in June of 2020. So I don't know, the evidence that Miss Woods is bringing up almost feels like it's hearsay, saying that she did all this research and the police did all this stuff. But the only thing that was submitted, as far as I could see, was a bunch of numbers saying that, block, 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 and then one number that was a previous used number on a jetpack on the internet that I owned back in 2023. So I don't know how she's putting these things together. We brought the jetpack from Puyallup because we still have our Washington phone numbers here. So maybe they're like, oh, well, that number is still connected to Puyallup because you have the jetpack in Indiana. However, I the the jetpack's ability to make outgoing phone calls is not possible. And the other thing is that we actually disconnected. We have a statement right here from Verizon from an old email saying that it is disconnected as of these dates with all of these phone numbers. So I don't know what Miss Woods is getting her information, Your Honor, but it seems like I have no ability to cross-examine what she's saying. She can just articulate it here in court without having the burden of proof that I think she should have.
Okay, do you know Ms. Woods? Ms. Williams?
Say again, Your Honor, were you speaking
Do
with
you
me?
know Ms. Woods?
I do not know Miss Woods, Your Honor.
Do you have any interest in any Subway shop anywhere?
Absolutely not, Your Honor. I have no idea I don't even know what Subway shop they're talking about, Miss Woods was talking about. I have no connection to any of this. I'm just someone who is loosely connected to a phone number, and this is being the whole case for Miss Woods.
Okay.
And Your Honor, I would like to add that while he says that all the screenshots that there's no evidence that he's connected to it, the screenshots of my calls show that it is from that number, that 253 number. And when I called Verizon Wireless and when the detectives did an investigation, they linked it all back to that phone number and to that name and that address. And it's
Right.
coming, and every
All
time
right,
I
Ms.
answer it,
Woods,
it's the same voice and the same person.
you're convinced based on listening to Mr. Williams today that that's the one who's been calling you?
I have a history of multiple calls, and then it's coming from that number. And I can also provide evidence from Verizon Wireless stating that that number was linked to that person under his name, and also the detective investigation as well. So when I did my research, all of the calls are coming back from that same number.
Right.
And
No, I understand that. The issue is, has that number been spoofed by somebody else? You've heard the same voice lots of times. The question is Mr. Williams a voice you've heard, or is somebody spoofing his number, which means they're taking his number and making it look like it's calling from his number, and they're the ones leaving you the messages? Do you have any way to determine between those two possibilities what has
So
occurred?
so when I do answer the phone, it is that same voice. It's a deep male voice. It's the same voice that's calling and then making harassing threats. And each time I go and I block that number. So the
Mhm.
numbers that are coming is all linking back to that person.
Right.
And so I don't know, like when I went to that Subway sandwich shop, there were two employees working that night, and I gave them my phone number. I wrote it down, and they were very disgruntled. As soon as I walked out of that establishment, and nobody was in there but those two employees that night. So as soon as I walked out of there, that's when I started receiving multiple back-to-back harassing phone calls. And this person knew exactly what I ordered, and they knew the time that I went in there. And it was just, and then I blocked them. I told them to stop calling me. And it was just multiple people. Just, I mean, I'm sorry, not multiple people, but the same voice that is on the other end. And I do identify it as the person that is here today. And once again, I just want the harassing phone
It's,
calls to stop.
hold on. Okay. I'm just having a hard time buying that I mean, I know you're convinced today that it's Mr. Williams. What would be his motivation living in Indiana to do this? Any
Yes.
sense
I
what that?
feel that because the employees that were working there, when I came in and I placed the order and it was an incorrect order, they did my order wrong. And so when I came back to make a complaint about it, I felt that they were upset and disgruntled. The person that was there, she instructed me to give me her number and put it in. And
Right.
I'm just saying that once, when then she went to the back for an extended period of time. And I feel that they wanted to do that as a way to get back at me for making a complaint. And I feel that she got a family member or a friend to do that.
Okay. So that's what you think has occurred.
Yes, and that's what has happened. That was like, and it was just ongoing, back to back, and it's still been going on, just multiple calls and back to back. And when I looked up all the numbers that were calling me, all of those numbers are coming back.
I
That
know.
that
I, I,
person.
I get that. Okay. Mr. Williams, what do you do in Greenwood?
And my family have no family members that live in Washington. I have no family in Washington. Your Honor, I even have phone records from the.
No. What do you do? What's your job?
I am a life coach, but I retired from the Army in 2020, and I got a job in Bloomington, Indiana, which is why I moved here and bought a home, and that's why I'm here. I have no family in Washington. I have no connections in Washington. I have nothing in Washington to go and connect to, let alone go and harass Miss Woods about a sandwich. Your Honor. So this is a case of strong mistaken identity for whatever reason.
Okay, yeah, I get that. So, are you a life coach? You're working out of the house. Are you working full time? How does that work?
Yes, sir. Right now I'm looking for clients, and anyone on here who wants to be a client, I love that. But right now I work as
thousands on YouTube. So yeah,
as a health and wellness holistic coach, and I do that full time right now, Your Honor.
All right.
And Your Honor, I just wanted to add to that I work 5 days a week as a registered nurse. And
Yep.
I would like to add that, like, just the harassing calls, that does limit
Yeah.
me
Yeah, Ms.
from,
Woods, you don't
and
have to convince me that the getting hundreds of calls is harassment. I'm totally satisfied about that. The question is, who's the one that's calling you? That's really the issue here.
right, understood. And Your Honor, I did work with the detectives extensively, trying to find the number and the person behind it. And I called Verizon Wireless customer service, and they did tell me that the numbers were registered under that name.
Right.
Right. So,
I
and
understand
that
that.
person. So it's all the
Okay.
numbers that are coming back that are
All
calling
right.
me.
Your Honor,
Thank
can
you.
my she
Yeah,
did?
yeah, Mr. Williams. Yeah, hold on.
Okay.
All right. There is no doubt in my mind that Ms. Woods has been harassed based on her bad experience at the Subway shop. The issue before the court is Mr. Williams the one whose phone number, whose name has been linked to a phone number, is the one who's doing the harassment. Mr. Williams lives in Indiana, has for a while, based on his testimony, and indicates he has no family members in Washington and no interest in Subway stores or any of the employees at Subway stores, unless he's hungry. So I'm not satisfied that there's sufficient evidence. The fact that it comes back to a number isn't enough in my mind. And unfortunately, with the continuing, I'd say improvements, but I use that word carefully, of technology, the ability to make a call from one number and make it appear that it's a call from another number is pretty widespread these days. I believe that's what's happening here. I believe it's likely somebody associated with the store at issue, and somehow they got onto this number and are using it as a basis for calling Ms. Woods. So Ms. Woods, this doesn't solve your problem. I think right now we don't know who is originating the calls. I am not satisfied in any way that it's Mr. Williams who is doing so. I don't see any motivation for that. And I'm
Your
going to
Honor.
enter a denial. I'm going to enter a denial. I have entered a denial. I sympathize with you having to receive these calls. Honestly, I think that's up to you now to you're going to have to change your phone number so that person doesn't have your number, and then the calls will end, or hopefully you've done that. But I think that's the only way to address it right now. So I've entered the denial. I'm not satisfied that Mr. Williams is the one making the call. You said you thought you identified his voice. I'm not convinced. I think you could identify a voice from 100 calls if you had known that was Mr. Williams ahead of time, but not afterwards. The mind will link those voices together as a way of trying to, prove something to yourself. But in this case, I don't think that's accurate. So I entered
Your
the
Honor,
denial.
could I
All right.
add something there
You
before
may,
before I
you
move
can
on?
ask something. I've already entered the order.
Sure.
I'm not,
Yeah,
I'm,
understood. So, Your Honor, I would like to submit additional exhibits of the address and the name of the person with the numbers all linked to that same person. And
No,
then
you
that
don't.
also supports like, mhm,
No, I understand that that's exactly what would happen. That Mr. Williams' name is going to be associated with that address and that phone number. I have no doubt believing that.
yes.
What
And then
I'm
also,
indicating to you is somebody else has taken that number and they're calling you probably from Olympia or Tacoma, and they're making it seem like it's a Mr. Brandon Williams in Greenwood, Indiana, outside of Bloomington, who's giving you a call, and it's not. It's somebody else.
mhm. And then,
And
Your Honor, okay, I'm
okay, all
sorry.
right, Ms. Woods. Yeah, we can't
I
dwell on this.
wanted
I have other
to
cases I have to
add
hear.
this one
Your
before you
Honor,
move on. I'm so sorry.
All
Yep.
right. Thank
Oh,
you.
Your Honor,
Thank
I
you
just
both.
had a, okay,
All right. Bye-bye.
bye.